Ellie is Fantasia. You have Holly Johnson, who I doubt has a bear in there. Black and blue. Of course, no one can see Frank Thomas with Frank over there. And then there's one other guy over here drawing some baby here on a clipboard, very much like the one tree. His name is Walt Disney. Now, if you don't know who Walt Disney is, question who you got? But anyway, you just have to continue to look at and enjoy the legacy that is Disney Animation. You should be proud of that. For 20 minutes, there's Dumbo, looks like Elfin. So sign your name. Find a place. Sign your name. My name is Tony Ross. I'm proud to be a Disney artist. Today is the 21st of November, which is weird, right? Of the year that...
Hi there. Please
Oh,
stop
we got
the
it started.
marker
It's a
for
push
me.
already.
Are you here?
Oh, we got it started. Oh, we already got it started.
No.
Me too, I'm so excited. I'm so excited to draw.
All the bears.
7. Okay. Folks, while you're at it, go ahead and take a look at the
Animation experience at Conservation Station. Since the 1930s, Disney animators have put their pencils to paper in service of the idea that the greatest inspiration often comes from the magic of nature. Walt Disney himself understood the importance of spending time around animals, studying their behavior and personalities in order to create realistic characters and dynamic storylines. This meeting of the human and animal worlds sparked a legacy of storytelling that has shaped our relationship with animals and conservation forever. Today, we invite you to become a part of that legacy as our own Disney artists help you learn to sketch characters inspired by the very animals found here at Disney's Animal Kingdom. Get your pencils ready, because here comes our animation artist now.
Just barely afternoon, everybody. How are we doing here today? Good. We enjoying ourselves at Disney World today? All right, excellent. Welcome to the animation experience here at Conservation Station. My name is Erin. Hello. I'm going to be teaching you all how to draw Crush and Squirt from Finding Nemo today. Are we excited? All right, excellent. Now, in order to begin, let's make sure we have what we need. Everyone should have papers, clipboards, and pencils, correct? Yes, excellent. And everyone should have their facial coverings up on, above the nose, below the chin, and everything in between, correct? Yes, excellent. And now there's going to be something else we're going to need, something also very important. Ever since Bambi, Walt really wanted his artists to see the animals they were going to be drawn, to see how they moved and behaved. And in order to work on Finding Nemo, everyone got scuba certified. So, who here is scuba certified? Probably not going to be a very efficient trip. So, what we're going to do instead is we're going to open up the skylight and fill this whole building with salt water and drop in the sea turtles that way. And no, we can't do that. Yeah, the crank for the skylight stuff. So what we did is we sent our film crews over to Disney's Vero Beach to kind of film some of our sea turtle activity going on over there. So if you look at our monitors, let us see our inspiration.
I have studied them for over 10 years. They have captivated me my whole life. I'm Rachel, and I care about sea turtles. Sea turtles invite a sense of calm in an increasingly hectic world. Loggerhead sea turtles are one of 7 species of sea turtles found worldwide. Disney is involved in conservation work on one of the most important nesting beaches for loggerheads in the entire world. But we are only one of over 170 organizations working to protect sea turtles in the state of Florida. It truly takes a village to save a species. Sea turtles arrive to Florida's beaches in March and continue nesting here through October. So that means our team is out every single day to assess nesting and hatchling activity. We act as detectives and study the evidence left by the turtles from the night before. Each turtle track allows us to determine the species that left it, as well as the presence or absence of a clutch of eggs. After waiting 50 to 70 days for the hatchlings to develop and emerge from their nests, we collect measurements to determine the success rate of each nest. Waiting this amount of time allows the hatchlings to emerge on their own, but every once in a while, a little straggler gets left behind and needs our help. Sea turtles rely on natural starlight to navigate back to sea. It takes cooperation and commitment from many people to keep our beaches dark so that sea turtles can find their way. But you don't need to live by the sea in order to help sea turtles. Almost 100% of little turtles offshore have ingested plastic, and this is a serious threat to their survival. One of the most important things we can all do to help sea turtles is to reduce our use of single-use plastics. Together, we can return some serenity to the sea turtles' world, a peaceful place where they have lived in harmony for millions of years.
Nice and relaxed and calm. Well, we're going to be drawing 2 different characters in the time it normally takes to draw one, so we're going to hop right onto that EAC and get a movie. So if you look down at your paper, you can see you've got those nice guidelines on there for you already using technology. You're welcome. First thing we're going to do is we're going to focus on the smaller shape. That's going to be Squirt, and this nice shape up here is going to be his head. And we're going to take those 2 lines, kind of swing across, and we're going to place his eyeballs right in there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start nice and light because I don't have a little rubber thing and you don't have a little rubber thing. I'm going to do a circle that's partially inside and partially outside of our shape. Kind of leaves a nice little crescent moon right there. Just the outside, see a little crescent moon? There we go. And once you have a circle that you kind of like, or you just accept that it exists, you can go ahead and darken it in. There you go. You'll do that on either side. Pretty big eyeballs. Now sea turtles, when they're underwater, their vision's pretty good, but outside of water, it's not so good. They can't really see very well. The little hatchlings use the reflection of the moonlight on the water in order to find their way back towards the ocean, which is why it's important for people who live along the coast to turn out their lights at night, because the lights of the city can confuse them and they can go the wrong way. There we go. And then go ahead and add in a smaller circle for his pupil, just barely not touching the edge of either our blue line or the edge of our eye. And you can shade these in for his pupils. Do that on either side. It's also important that if you do visit the beach, once you're done, kind of knock down any sand castles, fill in any holes, because the turtles don't know how to go around those things. Just have fun, pretend you're Godzilla, stomp them. How about those little turtles? There we go. Now we have some little Muppet eyes. We're gonna go ahead, we're gonna add in some brows. We're gonna have his eyes sitting in his head. I'm gonna go above that eyeball. I'm just gonna do a little curve that reaches into our shape, our head. We'll do that on either side. Nice little curve going above that eye that reaches into our head shape. There we go. And then you can finish off the top of his head. Just following that shape between those 2 brows. There we go, that's his noggin. We're going to do the same thing for the cheeks. We're going to follow that shape, except we're going to leave a little gap for his neck. Once we kind of reach this little cluster, where all these lines are meeting. You're gonna leave a little hole for the neck. Kind of where all those lines are meeting up. But before we do the neck, I'm gonna add his mouth. For his mouth, I'll start with some cute little dimples. They're just barely gonna reach that blue line. Two little curves. There we go, kind of like a little mustache. And then for his mouth, we're gonna draw in kind of a little V. Kind of a V, stretched out V. Because he has a beak. You can open up his mouth by drawing another one, kind of dropping a little lower and going up. Sea turtles have beaks. It helps them eat their favorite food, the green seagrass and green sea kelp. Russian squirt are actually green sea turtles, and they get the color from the food they eat. They also occasionally enjoy chomping on a jellyfish. There we go. Next thing we're going to do is going to go be the neck. So we're going to use that little gap we left, and on either side of that gap, we're going to do two lines kind of going in to our more almond shape. Kind of heading towards one another. They're not going to make it all the way. Two lines towards one another. Kind of the blue line for the middle of the face, towards the middle. And then if you want, you can lightly connect them with a little curve for the base of his neck. And there we go. Now we can pretty much guess that this shape here is going to be the shell. But we're not going to go ahead and darken it in quite yet because we need to add on his flippers first. So the first flipper I'm going to attach with another light little curve, basically right next to where you attach the neck, or right next to, right above it, like so. And for this flipper, it's going to kind of curve up and towards the cheek a little bit. Then we're going to use our nice little guidelines floating out here. Again, I'm going to do this nice and light first. I'll darken it in once I'm happier and have the shape. It's going to graze along, outline up there until we reach the stopper. Once we've reached that stopper, I'm going to do a little hook. A little hook at that stopper. And then we're going to pretend this is like a little cartoony wing. I'm going to pull down a little bump. It'll then curve back into where we started. A little bump here. You can think of like the wings on the helmet of classic cartoon animation Captain America, before the live action movies. Back when they were just little wings sticking out on the top of his head. There we go. On the other side, I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to attach it right to the edge of the shell because it's a little bit turned away from us. I'm going to do a little curve that kind of reaches up, curves down, kind of have this sort of S-like shape. It's going to go down along that blue line down there. And this flipper is going to be more like the state of Florida. It's going to drop down to that stopper, and once again it's going to hook back, hanging downwards. And it's going to have that bump. Then it'll curve in to give us a nice panhandle. Now, sea turtles use their front flippers to help propel them in the water. Their back ones to help them steer. Also, unlike other turtles, they can't pull their limbs or their heads into their shell. They have way too many muscles to do that. There's no room for that. And unlike cartoons, no turtle can, leave their shell. It's part of their body. Can't just leave it behind. It's part of them. All right. Now for those back flippers, they're much smaller and they're just kind of dragging behind him. What I'm going to do is I'm going to find kind of the point of our almondy shell shape, and I'm going to go in from that point. Do a little tiny curve, ever so small, to attach one rear flipper, and it's going to, like I said, it's going to drag behind him, so I'm just going to do one big swoop. It's going to go down to that blue line. It's not even going to go all the way. It's just going to kind of drag along it. And then we're going to do a nice little hook back a little bit. And then before we get too far, I'm going to drop down and reconnect where we started. So you have the one flipper just kind of dragging back there. For the other one, again, I'm going to attach directly to that shell. One big swoop down to that blue line below. And do that hook back. It's going to angle right about as we're passing that blue line to reattach to that shell there. There we go. And once you have in those flippers, whenever you're ready, you can go ahead and you can darken in his shell, or what you can see of it. So just snap back behind those flippers closest to us. But the ones that are far away, you can go ahead, you can darken in that whole underside of his shell. There we go. You also want to separate the top from the bottom of his shell. I'm just going to do that one curve. You need to imaginary lightly draw through those fins you can. Just going to go past those fins and then back behind his neck. One big curve. There we go. I'm also going to put some details onto the bottom of the shell. For instance, I got a shell where the shell stops and where we got the opening for his fins in his head. And I'm going to start right here underneath his fin pit. That's the technical word for the fin pit. Not really, but close enough. It's going to curve up a little bit, reaching towards that neck, and then it's going to drop down underneath the other fin pit. There we go. Little wave. Then maybe I'll add a nice little line, kind of going straight line. Another maybe a little wavy one. There we go. Down behind those back flippers. Just a couple small ones. There we go. Now there's a few more details we can add to Squirt, but I'm going to add those later. We do need to worry about the big kahuna as well. We're drawing 2 in the time of 1 after all. So we're just going to speed along. Speed along like we're getting away from those jellyfish. So, for Crush, you can see we've got more of a head and shoulders going on. We're not drawing the whole sea turtle. That's the good news. Here's the bad news. These 2 lines going across are not going to help us as flawlessly as those for Squirt because we're not going to put them right between those 2 lines. What we're going to do instead is we're going to pretend that the eyeball fit between them and then was raised up ever so slightly. So I'm very lightly going to draw an oval that's been raised up a little bit. Really lightly because also we're going to be adding eyelids for Crush. So we're going to be going over this shape more than we're going to be darkening it in. On the other side, I'm going to make this one a little bit thinner. His head's turned a little bit that way. A little bit thinner. All right. Now, before I darken in anything with these, I'm going to draw in this kind of line covering up some of this eye, which is basically the bridge of his nose. And a curve that's going to start above the eye and drop down past it. It's not going to go all the way down to the blue line, but it's going to come pretty close to the bridge of his nose, the bridge of his beak. And there we go. Now, what is this line going across for if it wasn't for the eyes? Well, that's actually going to help us with the eyelids instead. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a curve. Kind of comes and peaks right at that blue line. And then drops down a little bit on our oval shape. And you can darken this in. You can even thicken it up a little bit. We're not saying he has eyelashes or anything. It just kind of shows that there's a little bit of form to that eyelid. You can go ahead and darken in the oval above it for the top of the eyelid. Now for the lower eyelid, I'm going to attach right where I left off. I'm going to cut right across my oval. Cut right across it. So it's going to look like the oval's sitting in there because it is. It's the eyeball sitting in there. So once I've just passed that oval,
And you can keep
I'll drop down. And then I'll pull back up. Almost connecting, but not quite to where I started. That'll leave us our lower eyelid. And you can darken in what's left of that eyeball right there. Not too much. There it is. Now the other side is again,
Yeah,
we use that blue line to help us with our curve, but it's not going to peak there. Instead, I'm just going to start right there. go up a little bit and down. Start on that blue line, go up ever so slightly and then down. So we have a kind of a candy cane going on over here. Is it the season for candy canes yet? Are we getting close? Close enough? All right. For the top eyelid, I'm just gonna follow your curve a little. There we go. Now for that lower eyelid, you can kind of start from over here. Maybe if you want to imagine like the bridge of a pair of glasses to kind of figure out where you want to start on this end. Just kind of pull across, and then we're going to drop on down.
This kind of help.
Again, just past the edge of your oval. As we pull down to the bottom of the oval, and then pull back up, meeting the bridge of your nose just before it had ended. There we go. Now we've got a pair of blank eyes. You're going to go ahead and add in his pupils. You can have him looking wherever you want. I'm going to have him looking at his son, though, because he's a proud papa. Squirt is not his only child, though. He has lots and lots of children. Squirt just happens to be his youngest. Squirt has a lot of brothers. He actually has to have a whole lot of brothers because it's actually the temperature of the sand that determines whether they're going to be boy or girl sea turtles. If the sand is hotter, they're going to be females. If it's cooler, they're going to be male sea turtles. I used to work with Crush over at Epcot, and he told me that's why dudes were cool and chicks are totally hot. All right, and now that's his eyes. We're going to work on his brows as well. They're not going to be as round as Squirt's. They're going to be a little bit more boxy. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start kind of right here on the eye, and I'm going to do a very small curve that reaches right kind of towards that intersection of where that line's going to our oval. And then you can kind of follow your oval more or less, kind of up above the eye. When I've reached the peak of the eye, I'm going to drop down, kind of do a little dip between the eyes and perk back up. And then over here, you can kind of follow that oval before dropping down to that eye as well and darkening in once you're happier with it. When it comes to character design, circles and ovals tend to show friendliness. You can think of like Winnie the Pooh or Mickey Mouse, how round, how huggable those characters look. Squares, though, squares and rectangles tend to show that a character is kind of sturdy or reliable. You can think of the broad chest of superheroes, nice and sturdy, depend on them. Crush is pretty dependable, he's also pretty friendly. All right, next thing we're going to do is we're going to work on his cheeks there again, kind of like Squirt. I'm going to follow some of the oval, but not all of it. I'm going to start on that eyelid. And I'm going to pull, and I'm going to connect to the oval right where those lines are meeting the oval. I'm going to curve and connect right where those lines are meeting it. And then I'll follow it for a little bit. And then curve in ever so slightly. Same on the other side. I'm going to actually start up on his eyeball instead. But it's going to connect to the oval right about where that line is going through. Here we go. And then just kind of follow your oval for a little bit, maybe pull in ever so slightly as you drop on down. And there we go. Now you may be wondering what this other line under the eyes that we didn't use is for. That's going to help us with his smile. We're going to place his dimples just touching that line, and they're going to be conveniently right underneath the points of his eyelids. So it drops straight down. So right under here, onto that blue line. Nice little dimple there. Just grazing the top of it with the blue line. A little letter C. Over here, another little curve just under the point of that eye that's pointing down toward him. And again, he's going to have a beak, so it's going to come to a point. The point for his beak is going to happen right here at the intersection. You have two intersections. We're going to look at the lower one. I'm going to start over on this dimple. It's going to curve down at first because he needs to look like he's smiling. And then it's going to go up and down, meeting that intersection like a stretched out letter S. Same on the other side. Kind of go down for that smile, and up and down. That point. So now he looks like he's got a nice little pointy beak, or a handlebar mustache of sorts. Now, if you want to open up his mouth, you can. You don't have to. But if you want to, you're going to start by doing a little curve over on this side. If you don't want to open up his mouth, it kind of looks like a chin. But if you want to open up that mouth, just kind of pull that curve on up to that smile. On this side, got a big swoop. Over on the other side, you're gonna curve in and down. There we go. There's that little bit of a turn to his head. And inside of his mouth, you can add in a tongue. Just from the back, a nice little curve for a tongue. All right. And his neck. His neck, we're gonna again go to either side of our cheeks. And it's just gonna be a curve on this side. Pretty thick curve, but a nice curve kind of pulling down that way. And then over here, I'm going to come pretty close towards our big arch, but not all the way. And it's going to pull down and over. Pretty big swoop. And there we go. And of course, this big arch is going to be for his shell, so whenever you're ready, you kind of just darken that in. It's given to you right there. Now this is not going to be all of his shell we're going to draw. This is just kind of the edge of the rim of his shell. I'm going to draw another part of the edge of the rim. I'm just drawing another curve right underneath it. Just pretend you're drawing a rainbow and you're starting to work on the bottom of a stripe. There we go. Now this is going to be inside of his shell, so we're not going to worry about that. But if you want to see a little bit of the back of his shell, and just pull back another curve from that top arch. Pull back, so we can see some of the back of the shell popping out there. And you can put some curves on the rim of his shell, kind of some detail. Kind of give it a little bit of form if you want to. There we go. Maybe pulling back on the shell as well. All right. Now, last but not least, I'm going to go ahead and add some spots. These are going to be scales. So these nice scales for Crush are going to be a little bit more boxy, kind of like marshmallows. Little marshmallows on his head here. Here we go. Little marshmallow shapes. And they get a little smaller as you go down. There we go. And I'll put some on his neck. There he goes. Maybe a little bit more circular. Kind of shows that they're reptiles. They're not amphibians or something. They do need to breathe air. They can hold their breath for about 20 minutes or so when they're swimming around, but when they're sleeping, they can hold it for a couple hours. Over on Squirt, I'm going to put a couple little spots on his head. There we go. For family resemblance, I'll put some on his neck as well. There we go. And then on his flippers, this is going to be where it's extra fun, because these are less spots and more amoebas. So you can go ahead and add in some little random shapes just kind of fitting into one another. And they go about halfway up the fin or so. Don't get too close towards the body. But if you want to help out those sea turtles, reducing your use of single-use plastic is a good way of doing that. However, did you know that a majority of the plastic in the ocean, like the real mass majority of it, is from misuse of fishing gear and fishing line? Yep, so if you really want to help out those sea turtles, the best way of doing that is to pay attention to where you get your seafood from. Kind of use the Seafood Watch app, kind of help you out, make sure that they're getting it from a sustainable source. Also, it happens to be National Fishery Day. Just a little coincidence there.
No, I didn't see. Yeah, I
And
saw
last
no.
but not least, on the back of Squirt's shell, you can go ahead and put some little flowers. Whatever kind of flowers you want, just have some fun. Little flowers. There are flowers painted on the back of his shell as a small little nod to the fact that in the movie the turtles were on their way to Hawaii. And there you go. You've just drawn two characters in the time it normally takes to draw one. How we doing? Good. I see a couple thumbs up. A couple people just like, don't talk to me, I'm just really going. As you finish up your drawings, take a moment to look down at them. Maybe they turned out better than you thought. Maybe you're feeling kind of proud. If that's how you feel, congratulations, you're an artist and I'm so proud of you. Or maybe you're looking down and you're just like, wow, this is terrible. And if that's how you feel, congratulations, you're an artist and I'm so proud of you. Because it does not matter how you feel about your work in the end, or even how it turned out that makes you an artist, but the fact that you created something in the first place, so you should feel proud. If you
Expectation.
look over to your right, you'll see some of our great Disney artists, including Walt Disney himself, also
Oh,
drawing
look
a lot
at
more.
that.
Frank Thomas and Ollie Johnston, who are 9 old men, they were
Mine.
influences to help teach animation, even today. Artist Scott and Mary Blair, our first female animator and our first female Imagineer. They're studying animals, drawing famous Disney characters based on animals. You've all done that here today. You've all joined in that legacy. You're officially Disney artists. Congratulations. Yay. Make it official. Sign your name. Sign it.
Look at
David.
yours, so nice.
11/21 of the year that refuses to end. Uses. All right, everyone. It has been fun, but time is now up. Now, because it is that year that simply will not end no matter what we do, we're going to do things a little differently than we did in the long ago time of February. In a moment, you're going to hear a voice that's going to tell you goodbye, and then you're going to do nothing. Yes, that's all right, do nothing. My friends over there, friend is going to dismiss you one group at a time, starting over there and making our way over here, so that you don't have to pass by one another as you leave. Once you are called, and only once you are called, you're going to get up, look down at your chair, make sure you forgot nothing. Then you're going to go over towards the exit. As you make it to the exit, you will find black buckets. Those black buckets are for your black boards. You shall put your boards in there and you shall get bonus points for putting them in the same way with that nice hole at the top. Just grab it by that, laying it up and down. 3 bonus points. You will lose bonus points if you put your pencils in those black buckets. They're only for black